4,000 years ago, in a city built from gold and mud brick, one man figured out something most people alive today still haven't. His name was Arkad. He started broke, a scribe, copying laws onto clay tablets for a handful of coins a day. He ended up the richest man in Babylon, wealthier than the nobles who'd been born into fortunes he never had. When his childhood friends, still poor, still struggling, finally asked him the question that had been eating at them for years, his answer was so simple it almost insulted them. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what he told them and why it still works. 4,000 years later, this is the richest man in Babylon. Picture this. You open your banking app on a Tuesday night the way you do most nights, half out of habit and half out of dread. The number is almost exactly what it was last month. And the month before that. You scroll back, trying to spot the leak, and you can't find it. There isn't one. It's not a leak. It's 1,000 small, reasonable choices, none dramatic enough to remember on their own. You're not bad with money. You've just never been taught the one mechanical habit that actually moves that number. And neither had most of ancient Babylon, until one man figured it out. Arkad grew up with a friend named Algamish, a moneylender, one of the wealthiest men in the city. As a young man, broke and frustrated, Arkad finally asked him directly, "How does a person actually become wealthy?" Algamish gave him a job, copying tablets, and a single instruction that sounded almost too simple to matter. Out of every 10 coins you earn, keep one for yourself. Arkad tried it, and immediately his own mind rebelled against it. Short on rent within a month, just this once. A deal on sandals he didn't need, just this once, again. Excuse after excuse, each one reasonable on its own, each one quietly emptying the purse he'd sworn to fill. When Algamish checked in a year later, Arkad had nothing to show for it. He'd intended the rules sincerely and spent the coin every single time something else felt more urgent. Algamish didn't get angry. He'd clearly watched this exact failure play out in other young men before. He simply said the sentence that became the foundation of everything that followed. A part of all you earn is yours to keep. And if you can't make yourself keep it, you'll never have anything else either, no matter how much you earn. Years later, Algamish summoned Arkad to take over his lending business. Proof the lesson had finally taken root. Eventually, the king of Babylon himself asked Arkad why so few citizens held so much of the city's gold, while most held almost none. Arkad's answer became what's often called the 7 cures for an empty purse, and what they have in common matters more than the list itself. Every one of them is mechanical, not motivational. A specific, repeatable action done the same way regardless of how anyone happened to feel that week. Most modern financial advice leans on motivation. Arkad's barely mentions feelings at all, because motivation fades, and what survives it is a mechanism simple enough to follow on your worst week exactly as easily as your best one. Here's the rule, stated exactly the way Arkad eventually mastered it. Pay yourself first, not last, not whatever's left over. First, most people pay everyone else before they pay themselves. The landlord, the credit card, the subscriptions that quietly renew. Whatever survives that gauntlet, if anything does, is what they call savings. Arkad flipped the order. The moment money arrived, 10% was removed immediately before a single other bill was paid and treated as completely untouchable. Here's what should genuinely surprise you. He didn't live on dramatically less. 90% spent carefully, simply covered exactly what 90% needed to cover. The bills that felt unavoidable at 100 quietly rearranged themselves to fit inside 90. The same way water finds the shape of whatever container holds it. The amount you earn was rarely the actual obstacle. The order was. Where does your money actually go? Not roughly. Specifically, most people, including people earning very good incomes, genuinely cannot answer this. Their money simply leaves, distributed across a dozen small decisions made too quickly to track, each one reasonable in the moment, devastating in aggregate. Arkad's teaching here is brutally direct. What each of us calls our necessary expenses will always grow to equal our income unless we discipline it otherwise. Confused desires for needs and the gap between what you earn and what you keep will always land at zero, no matter how high that earning number climbs. Picture two scribes, same wage, same city. One writes down every coin spent for 30 days, surprised by what it reveals. Nothing scandalous, just relentless. The other never looks and spends the rest of his life believing wealth is for other people, luckier than him. Both have the same income. Only one of them ever actually sees where it's going. Saving alone isn't the finish line, it's the starting line. And this is where most people, even disciplined ones, quietly stall out. Arkad's gold, simply sitting in a box, did nothing. It just waited, exactly as inert as the day he earned it. A man named Sweet Smell came to him once with the chance to lend his gold to merchants for a generous return. The pitch sounded obvious, but he never actually investigated what the merchant intended to use the money for. He lost it entirely on bricks of metal nobody actually wanted to buy. Arkad's lesson wasn't, don't lend money. It was sharper. Gold left idle earns nothing, but gold lent carelessly disappears even faster than gold spent on pleasure. The skill isn't simply putting your money to work, it's knowing exactly where it's going before you let it leave your hands. Every coin you save and invest can eventually be let to work as hard as you once did to earn it and have children of its own, earning on top of what it's already earning. That compounding isn't a modern invention. Babylon already understood it. A man once lent his hard-earned savings to a jeweler's brother. No real experience, just a deal that sounded exciting and a return that sounded enormous. The money vanished within months. The lesson is uncomfortable precisely because it cuts against the excitement most people feel when a huge opportunity appears. The first principle of sound investment is the safety of your principal, not the size of the promised return. If something sounds too good, too fast, too easy, that excitement is not a green light. It's the exact moment to slow down. Picture two investors, identical deal, same afternoon. One gets swept up, hands over their savings within the week, and loses it. The other asks the unglamorous questions first. Has this person actually succeeded before? What happens if it fails? And either invests carefully or doesn't invest at all. Only one of them is still solvent a year later. There's a quieter lesson easy to skip past, but it reframes something most modern financial content treats as outdated. Arcad observed two men paying the exact same amount each month for shelter. One paid it to a landlord, decade after decade, coins leaving permanently, nothing accumulating behind them. The other worked to own the roof over his own family. The payments looked nearly identical on paper, but each one was quietly buying him something the renters never could. A future month where the payment simply stopped and the home remained his anyway. This isn't a claim that owning always beats renting. Markets shift, and the math genuinely varies. It's a narrower point. Know clearly which one you're doing and why, instead of drifting into decades of payments without ever asking the question. Near the end of the book, Arcady's old friends, still poor, watching him grow wealthy from the same starting point, finally confront him directly. Why them and not us? We worked just as hard. Arcad's answer is almost shocking in how little it has to do with luck. The gods of wealth withhold nothing from a man who genuinely desires to follow simple, proven laws. But those same laws do nothing for a man who only wishes for wealth without ever doing what wealth requires. Sit with that distinction. Wishing and desiring sound almost identical. Arcad treats them as completely different forces. Wishing is passive, the someday, the vague hope that things improve on their own. Desiring is active, the 10% removed before anything else touches the money. Tracking where every coin actually goes, the patience to let gold multiply slowly instead of chasing the exciting, dangerous shortcut. His friends hadn't failed because the universe favored him. They'd failed because they spent their lives wishing for the result, while he quietly did the unglamorous, repeatable things the result actually required, year after year, long after it stopped feeling new. 4,000 years later, almost nothing about that gap has changed. The cities are different. The currency is different. The specific habit has survived every empire built and lost since. Somewhere in the last few minutes, you probably did the quiet math on your own paycheck. What 10% removed first would actually look like for you. Maybe it felt small. Maybe it felt impossible, given everything already stretched thin. For some people right now, that genuinely isn't possible yet. And that's a real constraint, not a moral failing. But for most people watching this, the honest obstacle was never the 10%. It was the order. Pay everyone else first, and there's never anything left, no matter how much arrives each month. Pay yourself first, and somehow the rest still gets covered, not because money was conjured from nowhere, but because the same water finds the shape of whatever container it's given. Arcad's friends had the same opportunity he did, the same teacher even. The only difference was which one of them actually started and kept going long after it stopped feeling new. If this gave you something worth starting today, subscribe, not out of habit, but because the next video on this channel might be the next piece of the same simple math nobody ever clearly explained to you. See you in the next one.